So I'm sitting here with Ian Hallard, and you're a successful actor and writer. What do you enjoy most about your work?
It's a bit of a cliche, but actually just being on stage in front of an audience, I guess. You have that question, obviously, asked all the time, do you prefer stage or TV? And as lovely as TV is, and as good fun as it is, you don't get rehearsal, which is the thing about, obviously, as you know, doing theatre.
Yep.
You actually can actually play around, experiment, try things out, see what works and what doesn't for if you're lucky 3 or 4 weeks, which on TV you don't get the opportunity to do.
No, but what about your writing? So you're obviously doing very well with the writing at the minute. You've got another play on. With regards to your acting, what do you prefer, if anything, really? I mean, what's the biggest difference for you, I think, with regards to how you approach your work then, as an actor and as a writer? Let's look at it that way.
Well, I suppose the biggest difference is I've been doing one for 25 years and the other for 3.5. So it doesn't really feel like I can talk with the same authority on both subjects. It's still very new. And also, I mean, in terms of the writing, people had been saying to me for years, "Oh, have you ever thought about writing stuff?" And I'd always said I thought of myself as more of an editor, just because having the idea was the first kind of stumbling block. I'd done sort of adaptations of stuff before. And then I had a few ideas, so I wrote them down. But I don't know if I've got any other ideas, so that might be it. That might be my my writing career might have literally lasted a couple of years, really. We shall see. And because now I'm acting full time from now until June, I don't really have time to think about any writing projects at the moment. So yes, it feels weird. I suppose whether it's imposter syndrome a bit, but I feel more confident in saying, well, I've been an actor for this length of time and I've worked pretty consistently through that time. Whereas writing is still very fresh and very new, and it's lovely that I've been able to get some shows on, which is no mean feat in the current environment or at any time.
Where did the idea come from? This one specifically, we'll talk about Horseplay in a minute.
Yeah, for the Whale Friends Do, well, it was the first thing I ever wrote, so it's not the first thing to be made, but it was the first one that I kind of actually, the first idea I had, and it was just a culmination of a few things, really. They say, write what you know, and I've had a lifelong love affair with ABBA. So
it shows on stage.
Yes, I don't have to. I haven't had to do any research. And also because it was the first thing I wrote as well, I very much wanted to write a part for myself, which has not been the motivation with the other stuff that I've written. Okay. So I knew that was going to be there, and I was interested in writing about friendship, particularly between kind of older gay men, older LGBT men, and once I'd had the idea of the sort of the drag aspect to it, and I did a bit of Googling to see if there had been such a thing as an ABBA tribute band in drag before, and unless there is one, if there is such a thing out there in the world, they're hiding their light under a bushel and they haven't done any promotion on the internet. So
you're the original.
I think so, and because the play's set in 2015. I can definitely make the claim there certainly wasn't anything around then. So even if it crops up now, we were still the first. But I did have, ironically, when I told some friends what the play was about, a few of them did get kind of disproportionately excited about the idea that I was setting up a drag ABBA tribute band. I'd say no, I'm just writing a play about one.
So you're not going to go on tour with it in a nice kind of cabaret circuit and actually sing the songs live? And
who knows? If now we've got the costumes, I suppose we could do, but. I don't know. I mean, I've got a slightly mixed feelings about tribute bands, especially now that you've got ABBA Voyage and you can't. That's as close as going to see the real thing as you can get, and you kind of go, why would you go and see a tribute band when you can see that?
Oh God, there'd be many hearts breaking now with the tribute bands disappearing.
I suppose tribute bands, I mean, they're a fair bit cheaper, I suppose, if you can't afford to see ABBA Voyage on a weekly basis.
The real deal, as it were. Tell us about the development of the piece, from the initial workshop performance which I saw. Was it back in 2019?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, to how you got it on stage now.
Well, I wrote it in the summer of 2019 and happily, I was able to get that initial reading off the ground pretty quickly, thanks to Andrew Beckett, who was then artistic director at Above the Stag. They staged it, that was the one that I hosted it. They hosted it at then, and invited various industry people along then, which is where Jez Bond from Park Theatre saw it. Yeah. Jason Haig-Ellery, who's one of the producers on this, James Seabright and Tom O'Connell, who are the lead producers on the tour, also came to that, and also someone from the Birmingham Rep, Sean Foley, wasn't able to come in person, but he then read the script shortly after that and really loved it and said it was exactly what they were kind of looking for, and the fact that I'm from Birmingham, they were looking to kind of encourage and nurture local talent. Yeah. So he kind of committed to wanting to do it fairly swiftly as well. So I was just very lucky that several people off the back of that first reading were keen and interested, and obviously that doesn't always lead somewhere, but especially when you then have a 2-year hiatus whilst the world deals with a global pandemic.
Which gave you an opportunity to write another play, I'm guessing, yeah? Was that Horseplay? Where Horseplay came up?
Yeah, yes, I wrote that one during lockdown, yeah, which is not as an autobiographical piece. The only thing that I suppose you could vaguely say was might have some relevance is it was about a married couple locked in a room together, and so why that occurred to me during lockdown, I don't know. But yeah, and a couple of other things I wrote during lockdown, including the first thing I actually got made was a Zoom play that German Street produced, which Sarah Crowe, who was also in The Whale Friends Do, was in with me. So that was the first thing. That was the first thing I actually wrote that got made. So yeah, no. When COVID hit, I was very much I had a period of mourning during that first lockdown, because they'd literally, the rep had just had a meeting to talk about scheduling when the Whale Friends Do would happen in March 2020. Oh. And I was like, well, there we go, Sod's Law. Just as my playwriting career might be about to start, all the theatres closed down and nobody knows when they'll open again. So I had a video recording of that screening, of that performance Above the Stag, and I'd go and listen to it mournfully whilst I was walking the dog, thinking, what might have been.
What might have been, well, you're certainly doing it now. The title, where did the title come from? And why this title?
It all kind of came up sort of at once, really. Once I'd had the idea and I thought I wanted to write about friendship, and that it had a ready-made title there. Obviously, it's an ABBA song, albeit a less well-known one. It's from Super Trooper. It's the last track on that album, and it sort of also gave a kind of structure to the piece. It was about obviously talking about a friendship that went through a turbulent patch, and then there's kind of hope and reconciliation at the end. So I sort of lent into that, and I did briefly consider calling the play "I Still Have Faith in You," because even then it was weird. They'd announced that the new songs had been recorded, and they'd announced the titles of the first two, so I knew that existed, although I didn't know what it sounded like. Well, nobody did back then, so I did briefly toy with playing that, but I thought calling it that. But the Whale Friends Do seem more appropriate.
Okay, fair enough. And the collaboration process with Mark, being real life partners and obviously the director of this piece, how was that process for you? Was it
lovely? I mean, it was very handy to be able to send him the first draft of the script and say, look, I've tried writing something, see what you think. And I knew he would be honest enough with me to say, look, this is terrible. I love you dearly, but delete it and never show it to another human being. And happily he didn't say that. So that was great to be able to have some feedback and input from him, one of which he was absolutely right about. The first draft, I found it the other day. I'd not read it for ages, and it's amazing. It's kind of surprising when you know yourself as a writer, something you go back on something and think, oh God, that was there right from that beginning. That the kind of the climactic scene in the play at the golf club is kind of practically word for word as it was in that first draft, which really interested me. But the big change was that, which Mark advised, was there was an extended flashback sequence where you saw the two main characters as 13-year-old schoolboys back.
Oh gosh.
And Mark was like, I don't think we need that. It's just backstory. And I was like, actually, yes, the sight of two middle-aged actors dressed as schoolboys takes you very much into Blood Brothers territory there, I think. And there's already one play that does that, so one show does that. So he was able to offer guidance on that, and happily, as with all of his kind of ideas, I'm pretty much in agreement that we haven't had any sort of conflict about that. But yeah, it was great. It was lovely, and it's not as if he was nailed on to director from the beginning. That wasn't this kind of idea at all.
Mm-hmm.
We just, after Sean had said he wanted to do it, and after James came on board, we sort of talked about it, because he directed that sort of the first reading that we did, but I assumed that he'd be kind of too busy or whatever, wouldn't be available to do it. And also we weren't sure whether that was the right thing to do, whether it needed a sort of a different outside eye, but I think because it's so, I mean, it's not an autobiographical piece, but it's very dear to my heart. Obviously, there's a lot of me in it, so it did feel. I think it would have felt, I don't know, a bit risky handing it over to someone else. Whereas, obviously, Mark's judgment I trust a lot.
Tell us a little bit about the piece. So, for people that haven't seen it yet, what are they going to take home from this? Well, hopefully, it's a feel-good night out. Hopefully, that's what we kind of set out to write. It felt like post-pandemic people needed kind of cheering up. Definitely cheering up.
Yeah. Writing something that was sort of heartwarming, and about friendship, and about these 6 characters who we've got a brilliant cast of comic actors playing, who are. I'm so thrilled that they all said yes, and they were all our first choices for the parts. So I think people seem to really respond to them as characters and like being in their company, and which I think is always helps. Yeah, I mean, there's something for ABBA fans. If you're a big ABBA fan, there are little Easter eggs and little things that you'll pick up, and you can always tell when you've got some very committed ABBA fans in the audience.
When I was there a couple of people dressed up in the jumpsuits and stuff, and lots of glitter.
Exactly. But if you're not into ABBA all that much, then I mean, it's the background of the piece. It's not a play about ABBA. It's about friendship. It's about those kind of ties, and also there's a subplot and twists in the second half, which usually had people gasping with surprise. And a woman in Sheffield, actually, I heard her say, "Oh, an outrage!" at that point, in a good way. She was outraged by what one of the characters was doing, not by the piece itself, which is really gratifying, because you kind of go, I mean, laughs are brilliant and are lovely, but if you actually hear those kind of shocked gasps, then you really know you've hooked the audience and they're really engaged with the piece and the character. So that's always very gratifying to play.
Fair enough. So where can we see this play? Where is it going?
It's on at Park Theatre in Finsbury Park in London until the 15th of April. And then we go on tour till the 10th of June all around the country. We've got York and Salford, Bath, Cheltenham and Exeter, Brighton, Oxford and Guildford.
Excellent.
I've learnt it by heart. The producers have taught me well.
They pushed it into you. Excellent. Exactly. All right. Well, thank you for the chat.
Pleasure. Lovely to chat to you now.